Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else. It has been a minute since we've gone back to the games from my past to have another look at a classic I played as a kid but haven't since, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Unlike all the previous ones though, I never finished this as a kid. In fact, I never got past the first area, but there is no time like the present to go back and get it done. Oh yeah, so the game, that's Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, as I'm sure you've already guessed by the many obvious clues. Released in 2002, this game caused a lot of confusion because it was released a year after the film of the same name and only a handful of weeks before the Two Towers film, and yet had nothing to do with the films at all. This was in fact based on the original books, which meant that it was not what people were expecting, and probably why it failed. Although it was technically a financial success, the official movie tie-in game for Two Towers, which released around a similar time, sold 4 times as many units. That tie-in is actually another game from my past. I do want to make a video on it, but it's not what we're doing right now. Right now the priority is this game, so let's get it started. We start with the standard Fellowship entrance, and we begin our journey, unsurprisingly, at Bag End. We learn what we have to do by some questionable voice acting before we meet Sam, and now we know we have to leave with the ring. Our first task is to sell our house. An interesting way to start a game. We get the deed and the key. I find the key without issue. The deed takes a while because apparently it's just in the bedroom. Because, you know, the deed you never touch. You wouldn't just like keep it in a desk or something. No, you would have it in your bedroom because of course you would. Anyway, with that, it's out of the house and into the Shire. Straight off the bat, I will say it does look different from the film. It always feels kind of familiar but a bit wrong. I like the Shire though. It looks nice for the time this was made. We get, I think it's a side quest. I mean, I don't know if it's a side quest. I don't know if it's necessary or not. We need to find a metal pin, which was apparently thrown and stuck in a weather vane. We get that out by throwing a rock at it, because that's Frodo's ranged weapon. And now we have the pin. We head back, so we can now go through. I think we need to go through. I really don't know if we need to do this or not. But we now go past there into Bywater, which is another Hobbit settlement. We spend some time meeting some people of the Shire, including Merry and Pippin at the Green Dragon Inn, before we meet the dreaded Saxville Baggins and sell them Bag End. Not really sure why we sold them Bag End. We don't need the money, but oh well, we did. We head back and have a nap, and now it's time to leave in the dead of night, which, you know, isn't at all threatening or disturbing. Turns out I was right to be sarcastic there, because as soon as I got to the Gamgee house, which is where I can drop the key off, they're the Ringwraith. I know a Ringwraith when I see one, even with a different design, and he does look very formidable. Now this is where I got to as a kid, and no further. This is hard. After a quick chat with Gamgee, we have to get out of here, but the riders are hunting for us. If they catch us, it's game over, and they actually catch you quite quickly. It's not much a surprise that Kid me struggled here, because adult me had a difficult time. The trick is to avoid the road as best you can, creep around, head over to the bridge, and then throw stone to distract the rider that's there, and hope the other one doesn't get anywhere near, before heading over the bridge into Bywater again. By getting here, I'm officially further than I've ever gotten, which is a nice feeling. We get there and save the constable by beating a wolf to death with a stick. I mean, it's easier than Ringwraiths. The town itself is actually clear of enemies. When I start to leave, wolves, and quite a few of them. Frodo's quite weak. The solution is to use the One Ring. Do you remember how Frodo is always actively discouraged from using it? Well, in this game, he's actively encouraged to use it sometimes, and this is one of those times. Going through, we get another pain in the butt Ringwraith. Like before, it's a case of throwing rocks and getting him to go to them before we run past. I do fail a few times, but we get there in the end and head to a farm. We meet our Hobbit friends as well as Farmer Maggot. Do you remember the one that in the film that you had to run away from? Or they ran away from as they were kind of going through his crops, like you just saw the thigh above the crop and that was it. This is him, and this time he just takes us away and out of the Shire to the Old Forest. Sure, the Old Forest is confusing, to say the least, and our goal for now is simple: find our friends. Is that easy? God no. Aside from the fact there aren't exactly what you would call landmarks around, but sometimes you go back and you find old routes blocked and other ones open, so all in all incredibly confusing. I feel no shame in admitting I had to use a guide to find the last Hobbit. After a bit of camping, we carry on. carry on to a tree that sends us to sleep and then tries to eat Merry and Pippin. So our first boss battle is a tree that's got Merry and Pippin in its mouth. Okay then, as bosses go though, it's a pretty simple one. Let him hit the ground and then attack the hand. We've fought giant bosses like this in game more times than I can count at this point. It's really easy. Getting it beaten though helps us to meet Tom Bombadill. This is when we know for sure the game isn't following the story of the film, even slightly. He sends us on a hunt for lilies for his lover, which isn't the easiest to find, but I eventually got them all before we meet the lover in question, Goldberry. After a good meal, we head out, and already it's getting darker and more dangerous. We were told to be careful of the Barrows Downs because of how bad it is, but this is bad. And also next day, no friends, and also spirits. The spirits seemed like they'd be a serious issue, but in truth they were no different from any of the other enemies we've fought and beaten. The actual boss though, the Barrow Wight, is another matter. We can't actually kill him, but we have to try. If we do eventually get enough hits in though, we eventually summon Tom Bombadil to deal with him with a rather interesting song. It works though. Our reward for our, I guess, lack of common sense is some swords. Tom takes us to Bree, which it feels nice to get there. It feels like some good progress, you know. We make our way to the prancing pony, and a mysterious, maybe Aragorn man encourages us to shut our friend up. So naturally, we do it by dancing and singing. This game has some odd moments. We also accidentally put the ring on, which is a bit different to how it was in the film, but still. Turns out the maybe Aragorn man was Aragorn, and also it looks like Merry's gone missing. Now we swap from Frodo to Aragorn, and that works well because he's much better at killing things. Like this man. We find Merry, but we've got a problem. We are being hunted, specifically by bounty hunters who want to get a reward from the ringwraiths. What we have to do here involves making some decoys while beating the crap out of everyone. It seems easy enough, and that's because it is. The last two are a bit of a challenge, but I wouldn't really say it was that hard. With it done, we move on. The decoy is successfully tricking the ringwraiths and us getting out of there. Our goal is Weathertop. We're still playing with Aragorn, which makes dealing with the walls much easier. When we start to climb Weathertop itself, those walls become replaced by orcs, but it's not really hard. We get to the top and we discover that Gandalf has been here. We also discover trolls, although interestingly not in a dungeon. it sort of looks like a troll, but I don't know, it just feels a bit wrong in my head. Like this doesn't feel like it feels like a specific kind of troll, like a swamp troll or something. Anyway, I thought this was going to be a mini boss, but it seemed quite easy, but it turns out these are just strong enemies. We'll meet more later. The boss comes later in terms of the ringwraith. Poor Frodo getting stabbed by a ringwraith. Guess we have to protect him now. Which is easy. We just hack and slash the ringwraith until they eventually run away. And then Frodo is standing up, and he says he isn't fine, but if he's standing and walking, he can't be that bad. We now have to escort him to Rivendell, which means just walking down the path and killing some wolves and some trolls before I meet Glorfindel. As someone who only read the books once, I was confused by this not being Arwen for a bit. Also, apparently Frodo is now A, super brave, and B, really not feeling his injuries. If we're looking at this doesn't look like a man who's been near fatally stabbed. Oh well, the ringwraiths are gone and we're now in Rivendell. We watched the forming of the Fellowship of the Ring, and I have to admit it does feel a little bit like a Wish.com version of that. But there we are. Now we need to head off. Where to? The Mind of Moria, of course. A Wish.com version of Lord of the Rings or not, that's still our goal. Doing so means we now play as Gandalf, which is actually a lot of fun. Aside from him having the same strength as Aragorn, he also has several different spells we can use. I really do enjoy using them. In terms of like general combat areas, this one and the bits with Gandalf are the most fun. We find the dwarf door, and of course we struggle to get in, as they did, and we have to fight off the tentacle beast thing, which just involves shooting it numerous times before going inside. Then we're back to being Gandalf, working our way through the Mind of Moria, but honestly, I don't have a lot to say about most of this. I mean, there are a few like flipping levers and stuff like that, but mostly it's just walking around and killing enemies with Gimli by our side. It's pretty simple stuff. It doesn't change much as it goes on. We get a couple of cutscenes telling us how far we are and also giving us a little bit of the story, and eventually we get to a point of a couple of cave trolls which we don't fight. Instead, we have to solve the puzzle to open the door. Solving the puzzle is incredibly easy though. We just push 4 little statues onto the buttons they were next to. As puzzles go, that was one of the easiest ones I've done in the game. The next area is harder though, because we are not playing as Gandalf, but Frodo. Frodo's weaker than the orcs, so we can't easily kill them. Really, we just have to kind of leave them to Gimli. One area involves going solo, but that's just a case of going up a ladder, creeping around with the ring, going down another one, and flipping a switch. Then we get to meet a new friend, the Balrog. Yep, the Balrog, who I will give credit, it does actually look quite cool. Different, of course, but cool. And I like that we get to do a proper battle with him. The Balrog is really hard though. If you get too close, he's a one-hit kill, and you have to get close to hit him. What you have to do is stun him with lightning, get in there and get a couple of hits before retreating. I do die a few times going against him though. Eventually we get him beat, and then we get the cutscene with Gandalf's, air quotes, death. Then we go to Lothlorien, which is pretty much all cutscene, but it's interesting to see. I prefer the design they did for Lothlorien to that of Rivendell. Now we move to the final area, Anduin. Starts with clearing a shoreline of orcs, simple enough, and that's a Nazgul. A goddamn Nazgul. And it took Sam. We need to get him back. It took me a while to figure out exactly how I was meant to find him, because this is the first part of the game that doesn't really explain where to go or what to do, but when I do eventually figure it out, I head the right way, after a long time of going the wrong way, taking on wolves, orcs and trolls at different times. Soon Aragorn had to distract the orcs, leading us to go ahead alone as Frodo. I don't even risk the battle though, I just use the one ring to creep past. With that done, I'm back at Aragorn and have to take the same path, this time killing those orcs that Frodo left behind. We head up and now we have a Nazgul to kill, the final boss of the game. Our bow is our weapon of choice, striking him from a distance and trying to avoid his attacks. I soon realised we can get up close and hack and slash, and that's what we do, and boss done. No, I lied, it's the first phase done. The second phase is also pretty easy though. We have to shoot as it's flying, but we can only shoot it. It has like this very specific. I'm trying to find out how to explain it. It only has this sort of very specific route, and there's only one point in that route where we can hit it, which perfectly intersects with these ruins that have stairs on them. So we go up those stairs, go into first-person mode, wait for it to get close, and bam! Despite us doing all the work, it's Legolas who gets the kill, and then apparently the Fellowship was successful. But Frodo's also now alone, and also Boromir has survived, because we're at the end and he's still alive. That's not exactly right, is it? But it has now ended. Boom, done. It very much does feel like it needs a sequel, but alas, it never got one. Due to the movie games just shifting so many more units, the sequels for this one got cancelled, so we are now left a bit unsatisfied. This did feel like the first part of a series rather than a self-contained game, because it kind of ended suddenly. It ended in a way that it felt like it needed to continue, but as it didn't, this is the ending we got, and that ending is lacking. However, how did I find the game as a whole? Not just focusing on the ending and the sequels, but as a whole. Honestly, I'd say though, in terms of my long-term videos, this is probably one of the worst games I've played. It's definitely the worst retro game I've played. Does that mean it's a bad game though? Not necessarily. The graphics are poor for a PS2 games. The designs left a bit and sometimes a lot to be desired. The voice acting was terrible and some of the areas were just lacking. So I use that term a lot, but it's just the perfect term to describe this sometimes. However, some of the game was very well designed. I liked Lothlorien and the Shire and also Bree. I enjoyed meeting Tom Bombadil and fighting the Balrog and the Nazgul. I also enjoyed playing as Gandalf. Furthermore, those bits that were, as I keep saying, lacking, not like I hated them or anything, they were just boring. So overall, I would say the game is okay. And just okay. It's not good, but it's okay. Is it worth playing? Unfortunately, probably not. Unless you're a really big fan of Lord of the Rings. If you are, you will appreciate this for what it is, but if you're not, you might just be left thinking, why did I play this? So that was Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. And with that done, I will be moving on to a fighting franchise I never played as a kid and thought I might as well start it now. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and do let me know what you think in those comments below. My name has been EvolvedPixel, and I will hopefully see you all very, very soon.